Hello folks, Venruki here, coming at you with another video. In this one, we have class balance changes. As always, I'm going into these changes. I did sneak a peek at them, but we're gonna read through them. I'm gonna give you guys my reaction to the changes, and then I'm going to sort every single spec that's mentioned into the 5 categories. Not a tier list, okay? This is not a tier list. We're just talking, are we gonna see huge buffs, slight buffs, nothing changes, slight nerfs, or huge nerfs for the specs mentioned? I'll give you my my opinion, and we'll see what happens. So if you guys have not known or didn't know, the first cup for the AWC was played today. We had the open bracket, as well as today was the European top 8. So we have a solid amount of games played. We saw certain compositions do really well. A lot of Holy Priests, a lot of Frost Mages, Outlaw Rogue, Feral, a little bit of Hunter were the things that probably stood out the most. But I do feel like there's a lot of specs right now. If you guys watch my last tier list, there's a lot of specs right now that are really good, and they're super close to being competitive. Like, we're seeing other specs have some close calls with these compositions. So if we do see changes, or big enough changes, we might have a completely new meta. I'm not 100% sold on that, but let's go through the changes and see what we think. Okay, here we go. The following PvP class adjustments will arrive with scheduled weekly maintenance on April 9th. We will continue to monitor and tune class combat in PvP and PvE as necessary in the weeks to come. Okay, so player versus player. We got Unholy Death Knight. Now, Unholy Death Knight isn't something we've seen too much of. We saw it not played at all in the tournaments. So, and it hasn't been that popular on ladder. There's some players that are playing it and finding success, but for the most part, I think it's on the weaker side. So let's see what they do. We're increasing the damage on Holy through a few sources this week and adding some power back into their healing reduction. So Necrotic Wounds now absorbs 4% of all healing received, was 3%. So a little bit of healing absorption there. Festering Wound damage increased by 12% in PvP combat. Virulent Plague damage increased by 12%, and Death Coil damage increased by 12%. Now, the one that's the most significant to me there, all of those are significant. I think these are actually some pretty solid damage buffs. My only question is, do Death Knights still just die? Like, do they just get trained and die? Maybe they do. That's a possibility, because I think that's one of the weaknesses of them right now, is they're just a great target to go after, and it just seems like they're in a weird spot where Death Knights are either in a position where they're immortal, or they're just the target that gets trained every game. So we'll see if it happens. Maybe they'll be able to get enough counter pressure with these changes. I do think Unholy Death Knights have deserved some buffs, and their tier set, their 2 set and 4 set interacts really well with Death Coil. So the Death Coil damage increase could be massive for them. We might see, significantly more people playing that Unholy Death Knight. So I would actually say these are big buffs. In the context of things, like, I think for Unholy Death Knight, these are definitely some big buffs. Next up, we've got Druid. Heart of the Wild cast time reduction reduced to 15%, was 30. So when Druids pop Heart of the Wild, Resto Druids, Feral Druids, they're getting these insanely fast Cyclones for a really long period of time. Heart of the Wild is a big cooldown that lasts a long time, so it's a little bit of a nerf. Like, it doesn't really do anything for Balanced Druids, so nothing changes for Balanced Druids. I would say it's basically nothing changes for Resto Druids. There's probably people that are going to argue with me on that one, but I think it's not really that big of a change. And then specifically for Feral Druid, they nerfed rip damage by 15%. So the Heart of the Wild, I think, mostly affects Resto Druid, and the rip nerf as well. I would say this is definitely some slight nerfs for the Feral Druid. So that's what we got so far. For Balanced Druid, Resto Druid, not too much is going to be going on. Feral Druid, some slight nerfs. Restoration actually has some more notes. So mana regeneration reduced by 70% in PvP combat, was 65%. So they nerfed their mana regeneration. And they also nerfed the 4 set. The 4 set bonus chance to trigger reduced to 10% in PvP, was 15%. So I would definitely say these are some slight nerfs. Now, for the Resto Druid, I think in general, Holy Priests and Resto Druids have kind of the best mana efficiency at the moment. And a lot of comps using these specializations are, they're around the longevity. They don't have to be around longevity, but they have that longevity advantage. So happy to see Resto Druid get nerfed in that regard. We'll see what happens to Holy Priest. Marksmanship Hunter, we're adjusting Marksmanship with the goal of reducing their maximum burst and increasing their consistent damage. So I think this is a good thing. I don't know. I kind of feel like Marksmanship Hunters, their one-shot is a little bit too crazy. And, you know, they've done this with Arcane Mage a lot. They did it with Windwalker Monk a little bit, where they kind of nerf the one-shot, they buff the consistent damage, and I think it creates a healthier spec overall. And in my opinion, the more consistent damage is more fun to play anyways. So Trick Shots now hits targets for 40% of normal damage, was 75. That got nerfed. Aspect of the Hydra now fires at 30% original value. Was 60%. That got nerfed. Spotter's Mark increased aim shot damage by 10% in PvP combat. Was 20%. Nerfed. Improved Spotter's Mark now increases the damage. A bonus of Spotter's Mark by 10% in PvP combat. Was 20%. So, yeah, Spotter's Mark, super nerfed. True Shot now increases critical strike damage by 10%. So they nerfed True Shot. But they buffed both aim shot by 15% and arcane shot by 20%. So, I don't know. The hunter community... I don't know if these are changes that the hunter community actually likes. If you're a hunter, please let me know. I feel like if I was a hunter, I would like this. I don't want to be so reliant on having to, you know, win in that true shot window. So I would say, I don't know if anything really changes in the overall strength of Marks Hunter, but for me, it creates a more consistent, fun play style. Yeah. Okay. Next up, we have Mage. So we've got the Fire Mage here. And with the Fire Mage, we have two changes. Fireball damage has been increased by 25%, and Sun Fury Phoenix damage has been increased by 30%. I have many feelings about these changes. Now, what I will say is I'm happy Fireball is getting buffed. I don't think it's enough of a buff, though. One thing people have to realize, if you're looking at these changes, is Frostfire... If you noticed, most mages play Frostfire, and the reason why is it has so many benefits, right? Like, Frostfire is going to be giving you, like, for example, if you're a Fire Mage and you're playing Frostfire, it's going to be giving you not only your Blazing Barrier, but you also get the dual barrier. So you also get an Ice Barrier, which is an additional slow. It's initial damage on your overpowered barrier, which is quite big. So you're getting more Thorns damage. It gives you a lower cooldown on Ring of Frost, on Ice Nova, on Frost Nova, as well as Ice Wall. So that's another benefit you're going to be getting. In addition to that, I don't know if you guys know this, but in PvP for Mage, the Frostfire Bolt, I believe, does double damage. So it does twice as much damage in PvP as it does in PvE. So when you add up all of these changes, and the fact that Frostfire Bolt is also instant, whenever you use your combustion, you get an instant Frostfire Bolt. So that's massive. Not only does Frostfire Bolt hit harder, but it also is instant cast. So this change right here does not affect Frostfire Bolt. It's specifically a buff to try to bring Sun Fury more in line. Now, I still don't think it's enough, because when you hard cast a Fireball, it'll probably crit with combustion for like 1.1 million, which sounds like a lot, but it's really not. I mean, when you're in a combustion phase, you're not normally, like, normally when you fight a mage and he's combusting, he's just shooting pyro. You might be able to weave in one fireball, maybe two fireballs with your combustion, and they're going to hit for like 1.1 million, which is the equivalent of like an Ice Lance. So I still don't think this is enough. And I'm not a big fan of just the NPC doing more damage. Like, I don't think it's very fun gameplay for anyone. Like, if you're a fireman, I mean, maybe some people like it. You summon the Phoenix and it just solos somebody. This specifically is super broken, by the way, I think in Battlegrounds and in like double DPS 2s matchups. Even though, I mean, these are situations that don't happen that much, but in like a 1v1 situation, this Sun Fury Phoenix is now just going to solo people. I'm telling you, you're a Fire Mage, you pop your combustion, your Sun Fury Phoenix is literally just going to kill someone. So, and I don't know how fun that is for the Mage. I don't know how fun that is for, you know, the opponent of the Mage. I'm not a huge fan of it, but yeah, they're trying to give Sun Fury a little bit of love. Specifically for Sun Fury, I would say it's a slight buff, but realistically overall, it's a nothing changes, because I don't think people are really going to play Sun Fury. I just don't think there's any way people play Sun Fury, truthfully. So I don't even want to say slight buffs, because I don't think these changes are enough to get anybody off Frostfire. I think Frostfire will still be the pick for 99% of mages. So hopefully that rationale explains that. Developers note, Icy Veins has been more threatening than we'd like to. And also, I just want to mention, I hope I'm wrong about this. If you're a mage, I hope I'm wrong, and it's really fun, but I don't think so. Frost got a bunch of notes. Icy Veins has been more threatening than we'd liked, so we're moving more of the damage to baseline and making a few adjustments to PP talents with a high and low representation. So Icy Veins increase haste by 15% in PvP combat. So they nerfed Icy Veins haste by 5%. They nerfed Frigid Empowerment by 2%. I just want to... Let me double check something really quick. Frigid Empowerment. Wow. Your water elemental. Okay. Okay, let's just read this out. So your water elemental abilities apply Frigid Empowerment, increasing the frost damage you deal by 3% up to 15%. So your water ele basically puts up a debuff that increases damage, and that is going to be lower. So that, I think this is actually quite big. That what I was just reading said it went up to 15%. I might not be right about that, but that's what I read. So if it went up to 15%, maybe, you know, it's only going to be 7% increased spell damage now. So less haste on Icy Veins, less of a bonus damage, like about 7% less damage. They also nerfed Death Chill, which is a buff you get when you cast Frostfire Bolt. So when you have Icy Veins, you're casting Frostfire Bolt, it increases your spell power. So these two changes are actually a pretty significant nerf to Icy Veins, as well as Slick Ice. So these are a lot of nerf. I'm not going to lie. It's a lot of nerfs to Icy Veins. Now, I don't know if there's enough changes. I guess let's just keep going. Frostbomb got buffed. Frostbomb is pretty useless right now, so I don't know how hard it's going to hit. Frostbomb might hit for like 1.5 million, maybe a little bit more. We'll have to double check, but I think it hits for around 1 million, 1.1 million right now. So maybe it's like a 1.5, 1.6 angle for Frostbomb. And then we also got all damage increase, which you're going to take. So they super nerfed Icy Veins, but they buffed all of our damage. So, and they buffed Frostbomb. So how's that going to equal out? I really don't know. A big part of Mage's strength right now is just having a crazy, overwhelming amount of damage and haste with Icy Veins. So I don't know. Ice Wall inherits 30% of the Mage's health, was 40%, so they nerfed that as well. It's going to be easier to take down Ice Walls, and then they also nerfed Overpowered Barrier for Frost Mage. So it's not going to absorb quite as much for Frost Mage. Overall, I would say these are slight nerfs, but there might be some new build that pops up that makes it kind of like neutral. I don't think I would consider it slight buffs. It's definitely some nerfs. They nerfed Overpowered Barrier and they super nerfed Veins. Although our consistent damage is going up, I don't think it's going to be that bad. I wouldn't put it in huge nerfs. I think it's slight nerfs. I think Frost Mage will still be good. More than likely. Discipline Priest, we're increasing the effectiveness of some Void Weaver specific damage this week to improve its viability. Entropic Rift damage increased by 30%. Collapsing Void damage increased by 30%. Okay, they love... No one really... I think nothing changes for Disc because I still don't think anyone's going to be playing Void Weaver. Maybe in Solo Shuffle, maybe in Battleground Blitz, something like that, twos. But overall, I don't think it's going to be, you know, the biggest of changes. Then, of course, for Holy, reducing the strength of Oracle Priest this week with Nurse's damage and Prayer Mending. Preventative Measures now provides a 15% damage and healing bonus to its effective spells in PvP combat, was 40%. So that nerfs Prayer of Mending. Preventative Measures. Let me look this up really quick. I just want to make sure that I got this right. Preventative Measures. Powered Shield absorb 40% additional damage. For Holy, sorry. Its Prayer Mending is 40%, and all damage... the damage of Smite, Holy Fire, and Holy Nova are increased by 40%. So it's a nerf to Smite, Holy Fire, Holy Nova, as well as Prayer of Mending. So pretty big change, honestly. I would definitely say that's a... I'll put that in the slight nerf category. I don't think it's like anything that's going to crush Holy Priest, but it's definitely a nerf. You know, I saw Zenlin talking about how this is a good change. He thinks it's the right way to nerf them, and the fact that you can be less reliant on Prayer of Mending for healing means you have to spend mana on other things, and you're going to be less mana efficient by default. We'll see. Outlaw. Restless Blades effectiveness reduced by 20% in PvP combat. So Restless Blades, once again, I'm going to look at what this is. Actually, here, I'll pull this over here momentarily. Just want to make sure I give you guys the best information. Don't want you to be guessing. So Restless Blades, finishing moves reduce the remaining cooldown of your rogue skills by 1 second per combo point. So Restless Blades is actually the cooldown reduction. So it reduces the cooldown on Adrenaline Rush, Between the Eyes, Blade Rush, Ghostly Strike, Grappling Hook, basically Sprint and Vanish. So their cooldown reduction isn't going to be as effective. 20%, I don't know how much that's going to matter. Maybe it matters a lot. I don't know how that plays out in real time. But at the same time, they buff Sinister Strike and Pistol Shot. So Outlaw Rogue getting some damage, but their cooldown reduction is getting nerfed. So I don't know how big it is. I'm going to put nothing changes, but the rogues can let me know if this is a huge deal. It doesn't sound that big to me, but I could be wrong, especially with getting the damage to kind of offset it. Enhancement Shaman, Elemental Blast. What do they say? We're increasing the power of some core Maelstrom spenders, which have fallen behind in the rest of its damage sources. Elemental Blast damage increased by 15%. Lightning Bolt damage increased by 25%. So Enhancement Shaman getting, a little bit of buffs to their range spells. Not sure how much that matters. I'll put slight buffs, but I know Big Damn somewhere cursing me and saying these don't matter. We'll see. I'll put slight buffs for now, but it could be that nothing changes for sure. Resto. We're increasing the strength of the Storm Conduit PvP talent and some targeted buffs to Totemic. So Storm Conduit now reduces the cooldown of spells by 4 seconds. It was 3 seconds. And Storm Conduit now reduces the duration of interrupts while casting Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning by 65%, which is big. So as a Shaman, if you can afford it and you're casting Lightning Bolts, you're going to be lowering the cooldown on certain spells like Wind Shear, for example, which is kind of a neat interaction. Also, if you get interrupted on your Lightning Bolt, it's not going to last that long. So if you get counterspelled, it's going to be 65% less duration, which is going to make it a very minor interrupt. I think this is just getting them to encourage casting Lightning Bolts and also baiting interrupts out of the way. So this could be a fun talent for Shaman. The only problem is Shaman have very expensive talents. They have a lot of good honor talents. It's difficult to give stuff up. Shaman is definitely one of those ones where you'd love to have 4 honor talents, so you could afford to play something like this. Then they buffed Rain Dance. They buffed Rain Dance to reduce the mana cost of Healing Rain and Surging Totem by 60%. Rain Dance now increases the healing Rain and Surging Totem by 50%, was 30%, and Acid Rain damage increased by 30% in PvP. So Rain Dance buffs and Acid Rain buffs, everything a Shaman wants to have. So I don't know. We'll put slight buffs here to the rest of Shaman. I'm not sure if it's going to matter that much. Shaman are interesting because I think they're actually good. They're just being overshadowed a little bit by things like Holy Priest and Resto Druid. They're not actually bad. They were really good, and then I guess they just fell behind when the other classes got buffed. But yeah, I don't know how much changes. Like, it's interesting. There's it's some slight nerfs to Outlaw, Frost Mage, Feral, Holy Priest, Resto Druid. So those really, really good specs are getting some slight nerfs. Unholy Decay is coming back in the meta. Could be interesting. Maybe like Unholy Decay BM Hunter, Unholy Decay Demo Warlock, something like that. Could be interesting. But yeah, I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see. I'm curious to see how this weekend plays out for the AWC. Make sure you guys watch both Saturday and Sunday for North America as well as the finals. And let me know what you guys think of the changes. And hopefully you guys like this format. Thank you for watching and hanging out. Enjoy the rest of your day.